Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I'm going to jump right into it. I'm here with Earl Persip. Many of you know Earl. He is one of our at-large city councilors, and he is also running for re-election in this year's city elections. Earl, for one, thank you for coming on. And just, I guess, for those of you, the audience that don't know you, if you just want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been on city council. This is my finishing up my second term. I was born and raised in Pittsfield, went to school locally here, worked in a nonprofit in Pittsfield at the Y for 24 years until recently. And it's kind of just a quick version of me. Grew up on the west side of Pittsfield. That's kind of the quicker version of where I'm from.
So lifelong resident.
Yes, lifelong resident. It was funny because when I was like 19, I think I was 19, I was going to move. And the YMCA offered me a job I couldn't kind of refuse. So I was like a couple of months from moving away. It's with a couple of friends, doing that when you're 19 and you go off and live somewhere different. And they offered me a job and I couldn't resist. So that's what kept me here. And obviously not going anywhere anytime soon.
Now,
or ever.
I never did mention to this to you talking personally, but your family name is a name that I've known my whole life. My father, who's 92 years old, knew your family.
Yep, we have a big family. Persip Park is on the corner of Columbus and North. That's dedicated to my family, and the Charles A. Persip, the old Post 68, was also my family. So it was one of the first African-American families to go to war. So that's what all the things are dedicated for. Yep.
I wanted to ask
it's a big
about
family,
that.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you, I guess, the same question I've asked everyone else. Is there any, aside from your family name in the community, then, was there any certain issue or anything that made you say, I'm going to run for city council?
Yeah, it's funny. No, there was no certain issue. I always watched meetings. I think when I was younger, remember the stadium conversations, like those meetings were like must-watch TV. And I was young then. That's when I started like watching council meetings, and I always watched them. I was always interested. Never thought like I could ever do it. It was never. I just watched it and was interested. And then I think my first term, I thought about it when Kathy Amuso announced, so I was in Ward 3, and I thought Nick was doing a good job, and I thought all large councilors doing a good job. So I'm not going to run just to run. I felt like everyone that was up there where I would run was doing a great job. So, and then when Kathy Amuso announced she was stepping down, I thought about it. I was like, oh, I should run. Kind of mulled it over with the family, and then I was like, it was our 1-year wedding anniversary. We were going on a vacation. I said, I'll make my decision when I come back. Came back, I still had the itch, so that's why I decided to run and take a chance at it. And I like it. I enjoy it. It's been rewarding for me. So my wife and family, sometimes takes me away at too many times, but your family has to be bought into, and I think that's important, because if they're not bought into it, it makes it harder for everybody. So it's good to get that support at home and kind of that backing that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree that if you're married or any family in the community, that if you are going to run for public office, that you need to let all of them know, because it does involve everyone. It's
harder on them. I tell people, it's like, I have thick skin. I can take, things, I let things just kind of brush off my shoulder. I don't let things bother me. It's your family that, they read a comment on Facebook, or they see something, or someone says something, and they're the ones that really take it to heart. And so you got to make sure like they're bought in.
Right. I definitely agree with that.
Because people can be mean. Some people can be mean.
Now, this will be your third time then running a campaign?
This will be my third time running a campaign.
Okay.
I don't have a campaign team or nothing, just me and my brother helps me, and my wife, and it's just us. couple friends, like, help put out yard signs and stuff, but
Okay. Now,
yeah.
would you say, what would you say out of your first 2 terms as a counselor? Do you have any, like, what would you say are your biggest accomplishments or the thing you're proud of the most that you participate in?
I'm proud of most of like just being like the calming voice, realistic voice, kind of bringing everybody back in and like trying to bring people into the middle. Um, we have 11 different personalities up there. We're not all going to agree all the time, but we can treat each other with respect and kind of meet in, like, if you're over here and you're over here, why can't we meet in the middle? So I think I bring that to the table. And so that's what I would say, like, I do. I think I'm good at doing that. So
What are there, like, I guess for questions that you field from your constituents, what do you think are the biggest issues though that drive the council right now?
right now it's pothole season, so potholes number one until June, until they're all fixed. It's always like it's like a circle. So every year you can kind of see the normal things. What people really care about is their day-to-day life, their trash, potholes, snow removal, parking on their street, those like smaller day-to-day issues, or like those ones that affect people's own lives, like right in their own home and in their neighborhood, are the ones that like people really are concerned about. There's always going to be hot topics that like people get riled up about. The homeless issue this past summer on to now is still there, so that was brought up, and people talk about that, but that's almost taken a back burner, unfortunately, because now everyone's on the potholes, which is a weird way to go,
As as a city councilor, because that issue, I even met you the first time in person
Mhm.
in the park. That's a big issue with me. But as a city councilor, what do you feel your role is in that, and how, just to make that clear, because I know I get messages from people, and I've even said today in a video, I said I think the city failed with that particular situation.
Mhm.
But I mean, I know the role of a counselor is not the role of a mayor. Uh,
Yeah,
you go to work all day, you have a job, so
yeah.
being a city councilor, I get it is a couple Tuesdays a month, and then fielding calls, and then all the boards and subcommittees and all the other
Yep.
stuff. But it's a part-time job. So
Yeah, and I think we have to get people to realize is, like, we're the legislative branch. We control the purse strings and we write rules and ordinances. Like, that's our power, right? But we can leverage that power to help and get things accomplished that we might not be able to say, hey, we're gonna sign this contract with this trash hauler, right? But we can have a good conversation with the commissioner and the mayor, and communicate our concerns, and advocate for something that we want or our constituents want. So that's like the role. It's like advocate for people, but our true power is the purse strings. We control where the money goes and how it's spent, and so that's the real role. And sometimes people think like a counselor can go, get a technically can say, hey, pave my road, and it gets done like that, or potholes in my street, it gets filled right away. We can't tell staff things to do. We don't oversee the staff. But we can
right.
have a good working relationship. I think I do with most staff members, and we can communicate that and say, how do we fix this problem together? I try to work with the staff and participate. Like, how do we do this? What can we do to get this done? I think that's important.
So I mean, yeah, I guess a lot of people need to understand then that the only role of really a city councilor is to be the voice of the constituents, what
Mhm.
they want. It's
Yeah.
be their representation. Um, so yeah, I know that I know I drifted a little bit on that topic, but just because I mentioned that today with Springside Park, and I don't know what we do. I have ideas, but again, I'm not a politician. And like I said, I know the city council, that's not something that really falls in under your job title. That would be more of city hall, or right?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. I mean, we can work together with City Hall and accomplish things, and we can we have ideas, we can communicate those things, we can allocate funding to those things. I don't think anybody has that. I don't think there's not a silver bullet that fixes it. That's why we're going to go back to the homeless issue. There's no silver bullet that if we do this one thing, it's going to solve everything. So it's finding out how we can help most people, because we won't be able to help everybody. I mean, let's just be realistic about it. There's some people that don't want help, some people that are going to slip through the cracks at times, but let's try to help the most people. Let's try to get the majority of those people, those very vulnerable people, help. And everyone doesn't take help the same way, as you know. Everyone doesn't want to go into the shelter at St. Joe. I mean, when we see each other in the park that day, that was the biggest thing that, like, light bulb in my head, right? Is like, a lot of those people didn't even want to be in the shelter for many different reasons. It was, I met a couple that just, they weren't allowed, they were a married couple and they weren't allowed to be with each other inside the shelter. So, that shelter is a great thing, and we have one coming, the one coming online. Those are going to be helpful, but they're not the be all end all answer, right?
Well, I think, with that one, and I didn't want to make this, I'm drifting, but when we met that day, I've said this to other people, but you were there, that when I've said, look, there was a segment of that population that had substance issues, mental health issues, that really, in my opinion, weren't in a position to really be making decisions. And you were there when I was physically threatened that one time. And it was no big deal at all. But, I'm not saying it was some big thing, but, I thought about kids in the park and things like that. And that was a perfect example of a couple individuals that day that they didn't want to go to the shelter.
And the person that threatened you, I mean, clearly, I mean, in my role at the Y for a long time, I dealt with a lot of people with mental health issues. That gentleman had mental health issues, right? So first, to help that person, he needs care first. And so how do we get that person the care? And you can't force that person to go get care. So it's, this fine line of like working with people with substance abuse problems.
We had a pandemic.
Yeah.
I think that was the other side of it. That situation was unique because of that.
Correct.
So just to move on then, so we don't stay, what would you say your experience then this past year as a counselor in the middle of this pandemic? What was that like?
It's been mentally draining. I'm not gonna lie. It's been tough. It's doing the meetings through Zoom are tough enough, but just mentally, I think everybody's worn down mentally. And then just trying to be on the, hearing numbers and like watching things happen and that you really can't control, and, these big outbreaks and people, are getting sick, and, it was tough. It was a tough year. I mean, when I thought about running again, I paused and really thought about it, because it's been a tough year and it's been draining, and I can see why some people are stepping down. It's understandable. It's, when you go through this pandemic and you're, mentally drained, and, people are working from home. I was actually lucky enough to be able to go to work because I worked in, we were closed that whole time and I was the only one in my own building. So, but it was tough to deal with. And so I think we're still not getting any closer to being in-person meetings. We're coming out of the pandemic. Luckily, the vaccines are available, and, hopefully it's going to get better, but it was a mentally draining year, like everybody, but it's not like just me as a counselor. I'm just like everybody else. I'm sure it was
Right.
mentally
It seemed
draining
like
for
a lot of
people.
the city issues that Springside Park one was a huge one.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of other issues that all of a sudden city officials had, 10 times on top of each issue what you normally would have. And then being restricted by not being able to have meetings in person. Even when we were in the park, everybody was still at the beginning that first time. So we were talking about masks, who's got them, who don't, and everything was absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it was,
You're right.
I mean, that was one of the first times I remember seeing people like out, like it was like
Yes.
culture shock almost, because I was like, I forgot people, like, you know, you go, you know, you were going to the grocery store, going home, and that was it. Like people, it was crazy.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the anger and temperaments, and I think all of us, in myself, all of us.
Yeah.
It's been stressful and it's scary. You know, it started off with memes of pictures of Corona beer with a mask on it, to toilet paper shortages, to oh my God, this is scary. You know, then it got
Yeah.
real. And you know,
And
it's
our
like,
own, and the election for president, I mean, that was
oh
mentally draining.
yeah, that was horrible. That was, yeah, and coming out of our own city election right
Mhm.
before that. And
Yep.
yeah, so a big thing I've been preaching, I guess you call it preaching, is unity. That's something I really, and when I say unity, I know that you don't want every city official to be like, I love you, we agree on everything. You know,
Mhm.
there's going to be disagreements and everything,
Yeah.
but I'd like to see the personal taken out of it and just have everything based on issue. And
Yeah. Yeah. I think Zoom helped us get in a rut there where people were kind of, I think if we were in person, a lot of those kind of attacks are a little different. Um, I think it was a combination of things: Zoom, pandemic, people just being worn down. I mean, so yeah, I agree with that statement where it's, I'm a person, like, if you're disagreeing about what we're voting on, that's fine. We can disagree. But like we talked earlier, I said, as long as we're civil and we can go have dinner afterwards, or, you know, talk about the issue we disagree with, like, let's get there. We don't have to attack people where we shouldn't be attacking each other. We're all here for the same reason. That's to move Pittsfield in a positive forward direction, right? We can disagree on what that direction is, but there's some things we can agree on, right? And so let's just focus on those things if we have to, and then move and work on the other things after. So I think, yeah, I think you're right. Where unity is important, so we can get some things done. I mean, I know after the election, you know, there was high hopes to like do some positive things and what can we get done, and then boom, pandemic, and then all that stuff gets put on hold. You know, so it would be good if you know, people were just treating each other the way they wanted to be treated. Like I guess they say when you're in preschool, treat others the way you want to be treated. So I
I
agree.
just think as a council, even to be fair to the counselors, if everybody as counselors, if you didn't have that stress on you,
Mhm.
uh, I think everybody would be much more effective. And that's just my opinion because, you know, as we talked before, I know sometimes it gets exaggerated, but
Yep.
uh, you know, I don't know, the feuding, it just with the pandemic, with other issues escalating, I just felt like it did get nasty at times, and I just want to
It
see
did.
field.
It did. Yeah,
So
and hopefully, I think now coming out of this, I think everyone's kind of, you know, settled down. Real, like, let's get some work done. I think that's what's important. Is like, let's get some work done now. We got the budget coming up. You know, we can disagree, but let's work together and get a
now,
budget passed.
moving forward, you know, another big issue of mine, and I've talked about, is housing in the city. And